I find it really useful when people do long-term reviews of the tool that they had, particularly if it's the next thing that I'm looking at buying. So if you're looking at getting one of these at the moment, hopefully you're going to find this helpful. So let's start our no-nonsense, unpaid review of this. It's the Makita Trim Router. I'll pop the exact model up on screen here, and this is everything that it comes with. If you're looking at this, you probably already know everything it comes with, but that there is everything that I've actually used. I've had this as my one and only router for at least 6 years, and my best guess is probably somewhere around 1,500 hours worth of work, and I work exclusively with hardwood. I've used it to build furniture and guitars. That's what I do full time. So most of the woods that I work with are things like walnut, mahogany, ebony, rosewood, ash, chestnut, okame, sapele. I've run the full gamut of hardwoods, but it really has had what most people would say is the hardest kind of use case it can get. It's worth saying initially that I've used it for just about everything that you will use a router for. So planing and flattening boards, cutting channels, cutting recesses, rabbets, binding channels, flush cutting, templates, roundovers, trimming, the works. I've done the thing that most of us do with all of our tools, which is use them way too hot for way too long, particularly for things like planing and flattening huge slabs of wood. I use for 3, 4, 5 hours on end sometimes without giving it a break in the heat and in the cold, and it absolutely hasn't skipped a beat. And one of the best things about it is no matter how hard the wood I use, and I do use good router bits, that's for another video, but no matter how hard the wood is that I'm using, it never feels like it's straining. There's a reassuring amount of power in the motor that it never seems to skip a beat, and that's really important to me. So over all that time I've had no issues with it. It's been absolutely rock solid. So it's a definite 5 stars in terms of performance and reliability. Nothing has broken. Let's talk about quality. So this is obviously the corded version, and I have dropped, bent, kinked, stood on the cable numerous times, and I've got chinks all over it, but the points where the cable attaches to the router, the plug, everything is absolutely perfect, no problems with it. So that is a really durable cable that they've included with this, as is the attachment mechanism. So it's it's looking decidedly second hand now, but actually the important parts of it, the finish on here has worn really well. I've got dings and bumps all over this thing. I've handled it with sweaty hands, with sawdust. There's been grease all over it. I'm really not as careful as I should be with my tools. I'll admit to that freely, but it has stood up really well. There's a little bit of rust starting to develop around the collets and the tightening nut here, and I'll come on to that in a second. But all of the other base units are working perfectly. Nothing has broken. All of the lock mechanisms work. The raising and lowering wheels work just as well as they did on day one. The plunge mechanism works great. Absolutely no issues. That has really surprised me how well this has stood the test of time. The only thing that I am about to replace is the little collets. It comes with 6 and 8mm collets, and I guess it'd probably be 1/4 and 1/2 inch ones in the US that it comes with. I don't know, but they've just started to rust and corrode a little bit on the inside, just because from all of the use, it's my most used tool in the workshop. I've just worn away the inside of those two, but they're about 8 or 10 euros each. So that is not a big deal at all. So quality of the material and the construction of this thing over time, absolutely great. The refinement and feel is something that's a really big deal to me, because routers are one of the scariest things that we use in the workshop, and they're one of the things that's got the most potential to cause us a fair bit of damage if we get it wrong. So having something that inspires confidence to use it positively and with intention makes all the difference, I think. So the fact that this has a really smooth motor, very little vibration, it's one of the quietest routers that I've used, and there seems like there's plenty of power on tap, it means that you really do use it with confidence, and I've certainly found that. And it has a nice progressive soft start as well. So what I've found is that if you use a router which is really quite vibey, doesn't have a particularly strong motor, when you're doing precision work with it, all of those imperfections, those vibrations are translated directly onto the thing that you're working on. So it is a really refined, confidence-inspiring router to use. In terms of price, this sits in that upper mid tier in terms of routers, which lands it pretty squarely in the premium but not luxury category, and that's kind of where I shop for all of my woodworking products. If you're looking for something that you are really going to need to rely on, then you really couldn't do much better with this, in my opinion. But people usually find it really helpful to also read through the comments in these type of videos. So if you do have this, please pop a comment in with your experiences, because I'm sure that's going to be helpful for people watching. For my 2 cents worth, I'll absolutely be buying this again if and when it eventually dies. That's exactly what I'm going to buy again. I've got lots more long-term tool reviews that I want to get to, so those will all be popping up on the channel soon too.